my wife was excited for me. She's like, oh, you're doing YouTube. What's this all about? And she'd watch a couple episodes. And then one day I'd come home because I love her feedback. She's super critical. So she says to me, in her own strange, loving way, your episodes are unwatchable. I'm like, babe, you're disorganized. You're all over the place. I can't follow you. Do you guys even prepare? And it's like, cut me. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
You're listening to the Angry Designer Podcast, where we help frustrated graphic designers crush the industry bull and learn what it takes to charge what you're worth and build badass, rewarding careers. In this 200th episode, yeah, I know, 200th episode, we're gonna dive deep with the legendary Chris Do, founder of Blind, The Future, and probably the most ambitious educator that I have heard about yet. You're going to learn about how Chris Do overcame his introverted nature to become the public speaker he is and influencer in our industry, the graphic design industry. You're going to learn about the unique strategies he uses to stay focused and so deeply engaged in his work. And of course, you're going to learn about the surprising hobbies and interests that have fueled this dude's creative journey. Not to mention, you might hear about a quick fire round, a question or two about his personal life. So please grab yourself a drink and relax, hang on to that steering wheel and keep your eye on that road, or buckle down and get to work, because you know what? There's going to be so much cool stuff in this episode. Things are going to get crazy. What's up, Angry Designers? All right, so I've always gone on about the importance of studying the greats, right? Studying the great designers of our past in order to help influence and guide our futures. However, there has not been a single past or person living or gone that has influenced my career professionally, that has influenced our agency. And the funny thing is, I didn't even have to study the dude, because it's like you can find him everywhere, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Instagram, whether, you know, he's an educator, he's doing events. Like, his name, I don't think that there's a name that is more synonymous than our next guest. And so I figured it's an honor for our 200th episode to have the one and only Mr. Chris Do.
Yeah.
Hey, boys. Thanks for having me. Number 200. I feel so special.
Yes.
I mean, that's a big one, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, when we hit
is.
50, we kind of get local, celebrities. 100, okay, a little better, but 200, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So, you're stuck with us.
You're committed.
We're committed, man.
Yeah.
And boy, are we, because it's a lot of work to get this kind of stuff done. Let me tell you. So I feel some of your pain at times. So, you know what? There is so much content with you everywhere on the internet, right? I'm not going to waste your time about saying, Chris, how do you help us price a logo? Chris, how do you help us be more efficient? Because you know what? You've created more content than anybody else I know. And I've followed you for almost like the past 10 years, okay? Right? From early days. So, you know what? Anybody wants to find out about his brilliance, his knowledge about running a business, you know what? It's everywhere, and I'll direct you if you can't find it, if you don't already know him, okay? I want to get to know the real dude behind it all, and I think that's what everybody else kind of showed up here. So I hope you're cool with that, dude, and we'll cover everything, and you just be like, oh no, you're gonna have a blast with this, don't worry. So
I'm going to encourage you to go deep and in the weird nooks and crannies, the spaces in the couch where you're like, was something there? Did I lose a wallet? That's where I want you to go. Yes. So I'm encouraging you here.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
I may regret that later, but for now, let's go.
Well, then we'll just let the natural conversation kind of take its place, because it will happen. All right. Yeah. So, okay. First and foremost, okay, be like Chris. How do people be like Chris? All right. How does one become Chris Do?
Well, that depends on what your definition of what Chris is. So if you give me a little parameters to work with, some boundaries to play in, I'll do my best to answer that question. What does that mean?
So I don't want to get too into the nooks and crannies of your personal life, respectfully, of course. But I mean, you have come so far. You've done so much, and it's like you're almost superhuman, almost robotic in the sense that there's no way a single. And I've been following you closer probably than most people have. But how does one person accomplish so much? you know, and get so much done and be everywhere and do everything and still have such an influence, not to mention not lose his shit. How does one be like Christo?
Okay. I am going to admit certain things about the way I'm hardwired, the way I was designed or engineered, depending on your point of view on this stuff. Okay.
Nice.
I am a classic single tasker. I'm not good at multitasking.
Oh.
I don't know what the opposite of ADHD is, but I'm the opposite of that. I basically can do one thing well. Right.
Jeez.
So that allows me to focus and go really deep. So I often lose myself when I find something new that I want to explore. And I'll give you the example of like how insane I am. Growing up, I love fishing.
Yep.
You know, it's weird. People are like, he likes fishing, he likes the outdoors. Yeah. Like topography and, you know, bass fishing. You're like, what? How do those things go together? That's just the country in me. I'll just put that out there. So what I did was, even when I couldn't afford to, I would go to the library. I would read all the magazines and I would check out the books and I would learn how to tie the knots and things that I couldn't afford to do, like how to tie a fly and the difference between saltwater fishing and freshwater and fly fishing and everything in between. I would just go super deep. And then later on, when I made some money in my life, I'd buy 5 fishing poles. I'd go and hang out at the tackle shop and talk to the old man behind the counter and ask him about how you do things. He'd give me dirty looks like, you're so dumb. Like, why would you ask me these stupid questions? Are you going to buy something or just get out of my store? Right. And that's what I would do. So what happens is I wind up collecting a lot of artifacts that drive my wife crazy because it's like, you're a hoarder. I'm like, I don't know. I might need to use those boots someday and I got the gear to show for it.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is I like to explore a topic deeply till I reach whatever the terminus is for me. And sometimes that can take months. Sometimes it takes years. But when I'm done, I'm done. I check out, I go into the next thing. And then if you look around my house or the garage or our storage bin, you'll notice like, oh, he was into this, he was into that. And I think here's the magic of life is whatever your heart finds that lights you up, you should pursue that with all your might. You never know when and where that kind of intense, passionate love for something will materialize. And I'll share a story with you here. Okay. Now I was aware of the UFC as an event from UFC 1. But I didn't watch it. I was in college. And so when I finished college, I asked my cousin, what do you think about the UFC? It was so fascinating as a concept to me. He goes, oh, it's a bunch of guys hugging each other on the ground. And I believed him, which was my mistake. But then later on, I started watching on pay-per-view and I'm like, I love this. And then I went back on eBay and looked for the catalog of UFC 1 through 20 on VHS cassette. And I bought them and I went back and watched them over and over again. I would make mixtapes for my friends, rip them to DVD and send it to them. You need to watch this. And I'd have viewing parties at my house. I did this for years. I felt like I had given the UFC organization more money than most people because I bought every single pay-per-view for years. Every single one without question. Now, it just so happened we were working with Spike TV and we were doing a job with them for The Shield. You know The Shield with Mike Chiklis? Okay. And I had found out that they had one season of something called The Ultimate Fighter. And they were on season 2. So I told my creative director, a guy who worked for me, he said, when you're on the phone with our client, Terry, let him know that Chris, I'm a big UFC fan and I would love an opportunity to pitch their next promo for season 2. He mentions it on the phone. We're on the phone. Long story short, we wind up doing 3 or 4 seasons of The Ultimate Fighter with Spike TV.
No way. Like blind.
Blind, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant.
I think four seasons of it.
So your
and we got to
passion
fly in there.
Brought it to you, dude.
That's right.
I love that.
Just by mentioning it, getting on that first phone call and telling them I'm a fan and being able to articulate the depth of knowledge that I had and the people that I met along the way. Because I actually met some famous fighters and soon to be champions in this whole process. And so they were just blown away by my knowledge about this.
Dude, you know what? And that really kind of lends to your whole philosophy. And again, we're going a little deeper, but it really does kind of lend to your whole idea about niching, because what you've just talked about, if I heard you correctly, is, I mean, you knew so much about the subject matter that when you met them, they realized this guy's a subject expert. Granted, maybe you've never run a show, you've never done the seasons like you did, but you were so in tuned with them. You are their audience that it's just like, here, take the work. No?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
and you know what? It goes beyond, because when they invited me to be there at a live event.
Yeah.
I've been to a couple live events before, but when you're there on the client's money, it's even better because you have press pass. You get to meet the fighters. And I was walking through the hallway. I see Dana White. I see at that time Joel Silva, who does the matchmakers. I'm like, the man with a plan. And he's like, huh? Like, I know the behind the scenes character.
Yes.
So you nerd out on this. And it pays off.
Wow. Okay. So wait. So this started out as before we get too crazy here. Okay. So you've always been doing this since you were fishing, right? So fishing, you've always been a resident of California. Were you born here or?
No, I was not born here. I was born in Saigon. I came to the United States when I was 3, but most of my life, like 99% of my life is in California. So you can consider like I'm a California kid.
Yeah. So then, okay, California, my whole life, and again, looking from this side of the world to that side of the world, we're similar in age, has always been like it's been like the mecca of everything cool. So what was that growing up like when here you are, Mr. Single-minded, single vision, but you've got everything from culture to arts to music to movies. I mean, plus the beach and I mean, half naked people everywhere, depending on what you're into. How does that even work out?
Well, the first half of my life, from about 3 to 18, I'm in Northern California.
Okay.
In Silicon Valley. I'm growing up in San Jose, which isn't like the cultural mecca. It is basically, if you're in engineering and tech, that's where you're going to be. It's fairly predictable. A lot of wealthy people just doing tech stuff, right?
Yeah.
The home of Apple and other things like that. It's not until I go to college, I moved down to LA, I go to Art Center College of Design, that I'm in a whole different version of California. So NorCal culture is very different than Central Coast versus South.
Okay.
And now you're in SoCal, it's very different here. This is the entertainment capital of the world.
Yes.
And I didn't realize the privilege that I was in by being down here until it dawned on me, reflecting on how other people have to work so hard to find a lead. Because by being in Santa Monica, where my office was for many years, I would go to the local hole-in-the-wall taco shop, a place that people love. The tacos are okay, but people just love it for nostalgic reasons. A place called Tacos Por Favor. One day I'm walking in there, and I think his name is Brian Glazer. He's Ron Howard's producing partner. He makes gigantic films, and he has giant hair. Yeah. And he's just there eating a taco. I'm like, okay, this is LA.
Yes.
This is the place where if you have a dream, if you think you got something, you come here to make it in music and art and dance and performance and cinema. You're here. So this is a wasteland for broken dreams because there are more people who want to achieve something than the people who actually do. But there's a culture here of people who think they can do anything.
Cool.
And you just breathe it in, right? Like one of our clients who happened to be a large commercial real estate developer, I think last time I checked, they were worth $13 billion.
Jeez.
They were just down the street from us in a nondescript building. And I never knew that until we had a meeting there. I'm like, oh, this is what's inside this building. So then I thought, like, I look around and there's buildings like this everywhere. And I'm like, what is the next big idea or big company that's here?
Right.
And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. Can you imagine what that would be like just to be raised in that kind of environment? So the difference in how old were you when you hit down south?
18 to go to college.
And that was pre-college, or you went down there for Art Center?
I went down here specifically for Art Center.
Okay.
So after high school.
So then what was that experience? I mean, was it that much of a culture shock or just like a slightly bit of culture shock? Because I mean, I know what your interests were back then, and it sounds like it's very SoCal, but I mean, I don't know. What's the difference?
It is a culture shock if I try to consume it in one go and do it too quickly.
Yeah.
So I come down here, I live in Pasadena, and I'm going to Art Center. And so what happens is LA is a freeway. It's like gigantic connected freeway, and everybody thinks LA is like one thing, but it's the LA County, and it's very big. And so people are like, oh, it takes forever to go from here to there. It's because in Europe, that would be 2 countries, the distance that you just traveled, right? So people have to keep that in perspective. It's actually quite large, relatively speaking. So if you explore it neighborhood by neighborhood, it's not so overwhelming. But I remember the first time I had a meeting, I had to drive out onto Sunset, like where you see the Mondrian and all the clubs and the comedy clubs and the bars and places where people break their music act. I'm like, this is LA. This is the LA that you see on TV. And I hadn't seen it for years while living here. So you just kind of slowly expand your circle. So you get to know neighborhoods really well. And people are like, oh, I'm from this town. I'm like, I don't even know where that is, because if it's not these 4 that I mostly spend my time in, I didn't even know where it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Geez, crazy. So, okay. So you're taking it all in bites,
a little bit at a time.
Small bites, right? It's how you eat an
Yes.
elephant,
That's
right?
That's
Okay.
right, yeah.
So, prior to art college, okay, because I know art college has been a big part of your life, of who you've become, good or bad. Okay.
Yes.
What was that like leading into it? Like, I mean, so early career, did you go to art college for motion graphics? Did you land in that because of Art Center? Talk us through this.
Okay. There's a funny story about how I wind up at Art Center.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm in San Jose. I'm working at a silk screening shop doing production artwork, literally tracing and inking over the drawings of my boss, who had incredible freestyle, freehand drawing. He's like, just ink over these and cut Rubylith. I need to make plates for printing t-shirts. Awesome, right? So he asked me, he goes, Chris, what do you want to do after school? And at this point, I'm like, I think I want to go and study to become a designer.
Okay.
He goes, and he has he's a burly guy, he plays rugby, handlebar mustache. So, Chris, you need to go to Art Center. There's cocky bastards there just like you, right? I'm like, okay, you'll fit right in. I'm like, I didn't even know I was cocky. Okay, sure. So all I know is two things: Art Center in LA.
Yeah.
So I go home and I tell my mom, I think I know what I want to do now. I want to go to Art Center. It's in LA. And mom being mom, she starts making phone calls, figures it out, finds out how much tuition is, because this is pre-internet, everybody. I didn't even know anything. All I know is Art Center, the most generic name, LA. That's all I got. And my mom looks it up. And I remember one time having a conversation with my dad, telling somebody else, like, I wish he would just go to Stanford because the tuition is the same.
Yeah.
My dad was just looking at dollars.
Wow.
Yes, it's the same.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Like right now, I don't know what the current rate is, but I think it's like $24,000 a semester to go to art school.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. I get in, I pack my bags, I'm ready to go. I go to school. I study graphic design and packaging. That's what it was called back then. Okay, we're still pretty early in the Macintosh, okay?
Right.
We're still working with computers. When you draw something in Illustrator, you would go to preview mode and you go to outline mode because you can't work in preview mode.
Yes,
I know for the
right.
young
Have
kids.
Super Paint?
Yes.
No, but you learn the vector programs,
Yeah,
and
right.
Photoshop was just a thing. It was just like 1.0 or 2.0 at that point, where you had one undo and you had no layers and you worked in channels. I'm dating myself, but those who know,
Yes.
if you know, you know. Just put that out there.
You know, yes.
If you know, you know. So in order to answer your question, motion graphics was not even a thing yet.
Yes.
It hadn't been invented.
Absolutely.
Okay. But here's where my story gets kind of different, or veers from the normal story. Because I was in community college prior to getting to Art Center, I was working on my portfolio. I took desktop publishing classes.
Yeah.
So I was more advanced computer technical wise than almost all of my classmates.
Oh, cool.
I already knew how to use Illustrator. I knew how to use Aldus PageMaker. And so when I went in, I didn't have to take any of those classes. And I was like a computer whiz compared to some of my classmates who were still doing things traditionally.
Yes.
And so that allowed me to take other kinds of classes. So I'm taking Stratus Studio 3D modeling programs. And my friends are like, what are you doing in this class? How does this relate to graphic design and packaging?
Yeah.
And I say to them, I don't know, but this is really fun. I'm going to play around with this. This is like when you would take an image and try to render it, and 7 hours later, you'll get some version of it and you're like, oh, the lighting's terrible. 3 hours later, you do another test and this is how it worked, right?
Yes.
You remember?
Yeah.
Like a little
Oh, God,
pixelation,
yeah.
like
Oh,
one
dude.
block at a time. It would like go through it. It would get slowly sharper
yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing.
Yeah. So, okay, going to your parents, asking
Yes.
for this kind of like commitment. Okay, I'm assuming because you're an immigrant to the country,
Yes.
they probably assumed accountant, doctor,
Yep.
do that thing. I know the feeling. How did you convince them to invest in art, which is probably something that they weren't as aware of, apparent, understood like they would something else, like something tangible, like accountant or doctor?
Yeah. Well, I'm the middle child of three boys. My older brother, much smarter than me, got into Stanford to study, like do his graduate program. So everything about what he was doing was what they wanted. He was fulfilling the promise of the immigrant children.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think as a middle child, a little bit of that pressure was taken off because Big Bro took care of that part.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I didn't really look at it like I'm going to art school. I need your permission. I just decided I'm going to art school. If you want to support me, fantastic. If you don't, I'll figure out a way. And I made this commitment.
Yeah.
And something you'll learn about me is like, I don't really ask for permission. I make up my mind and I just move forward.
Yeah.
And somehow the forces of the world will manifest themselves to open doors for me.
Yeah.
I even made this commitment to myself. If I had to, I would take 8 years to finish school.
Yeah.
I would go to school for a semester. I would work the next semester and I would do whatever I could. I was that committed. And I think the difference between me and most of my classmates were they had parents who had money, who supported them. Now, my parents gave me just enough money to survive and pay tuition, but lots of it was on loans. And I knew there's no plan B. And I think that kind of like will
that
to survive
bridge.
and
Yeah,
thrive.
brilliant.
You basically, you have no bridge to come back on. If you don't make this work, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so what my mom did was she recognized that in me, in this child watching me grow up, was a person who wanted to be an artist. And she would purchase gear for me when I was in high school and just, she was looking out for me, not thinking that I'm going to turn this into career. So she's probably horrified a little bit, but she kind of knew. You know how moms know?
Yeah.
They
Like
know.
they knew.
Yeah.
My dad, more denial, but he didn't say anything. So that was better.
Here you go. Here you go.
Yeah.
So, okay, with that personality, with that kind of gump that you've had, what was college like? Because I mean, personally, I struggled because I didn't like being told what to do because apparently I knew everything. But I knew enough, at least on the one side, that drove me through it. What was that like then?
College was the first school environment that I was happy in.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yes, because throughout junior high and high school, there were subjects that you could take and things that you had to do and things I was not interested in, but I needed to get A's because that's the standard at home.
Yes.
The only classes I really enjoyed were the electives, and you don't get electives until you get into junior high and high school.
Right.
And the electives I took, this will not shock you. I took shop, I took metal, I took yearbook, and I took
course.
commercial art.
Oh, yearbook.
Commercial
That's fine.
art.
Commercial art.
Right?
Okay, cool.
Commercial art.
Yeah.
Basically things that aren't looked upon, in the college admissions office, like
Yeah.
this is winning material. What, you didn't take AP XYZ? No, I didn't. I took the weird stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I just thought this was fun to do. And it made me feel alive. And it was a place for me to explore my own individuality.
Yes.
So when I went to college, it was the first time the entire program was kind of designed for freakazoids like myself. Everything that was previously elective was now kind of part of the curriculum.
Right.
It was the exact opposite. The electives were like you had to take English or philosophy or something else. And it inverted for me. So it was a place where I was most happy because everyone around me, although they didn't look like me, they had the same interest. They're exploring their creativity too.
Yes.
So the jocks and the band people and the popular kids, they're all gone. These are all the art nerds.
Yes.
And I felt so much at home.
Yes.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird feeling, except for the
Yeah.
fact that I felt like personally, when I went through the same feeling, my biggest issue was running away from getting my ass kicked on a regular basis. Because again, I didn't fit in quite right. I tried, but it never felt right. It took till the end of high school before I was liberated in that sense, before I was confident enough. So with that being said, you are somebody who regularly speaks about being an introvert and, still are and this and that. What was that like going through this whole experience, especially, as an artist going to that next level to college?
Yeah. I have a lot of social anxiety.
Still
and
or
my-
then?
Still to a degree, much worse
Shit.
then, but better now. Yeah. And I'll tell you how this manifests itself. One of my biggest fears on day one of school is who am I going to eat lunch with? I just didn't want to eat lunch by myself.
Cool.
So what I would do is I would sit in the back of the class, out of the spotlight, and I would scan the room for like the dorkiest, nerdiest person because I'm pretty sure they're going to need somebody to eat lunch too. Like we're just going to survive together. It's not that I like you or you like me, but I would just try and find somebody that I can hang out with.
Yeah.
And what was difficult for me growing up to about age 18 was we moved around a lot.
Yes.
Right. So we moved around I did the math. The average was a year and a half in any one school.
Jeez.
And
dude.
so people had friends from like childhood.
Yeah.
And the bonds are tight. And then there's this weird kid who comes in who doesn't like to talk to people, who dress funny and doesn't quite get it. That's me. I'm describing myself.
Yeah.
And so it was really tough. And so when I get into college, I'm finding my voice for the first time. I'm finding that I'm good at something, that I can do something better than most people without having to work that hard at it.
Yeah.
And thinking to myself, this must be what it's like to be a jock in high school, because you just do what you do and people like you for it. I'm like, this is pretty cool. So it allowed me to rebuild my identity, to change my self-story. And then I started to model myself after some of the friends I developed in college.
Cool.
And I could see that, oh, that's how you say hi to people in the hallway. Okay, that's kind of interesting. And, usually what I would do is I would look down, not make eye contact with somebody. And, when you would meet somebody or see someone, my whole thing was, I hope they didn't see me. I'm just going to go the other way.
Yeah.
Right.
I just don't know what to say to them. And
Yeah.
I would fumble all over my words.
Yeah.
Like you would say like, what's up or how's it going? And I would say, what's going? I'm like, no, that's not what I meant to say. That was
Right.
not. Yeah. I would juxtapose words. It was just very awkward. But in college, I started to find my voice, find my confidence, find my identity. And I was starting to build up to something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And then after college, okay.
Yes.
Because you said you still are going through this. You still have this. How does it shape your career? How do you even get the motive? So I'm one of those extroverted introverts. I can do everything I when I need to. Man, do I need my quiet time, my in time.
Yeah.
How do you find that extra boost to start a business, reach out to customers, let alone what you're doing now?
Okay, there's a lot of questions.
Okay,
in one.
fair enough. I know.
Let's do one at a time.
Okay,
let's do one at a time, and then I'll try my best to answer each one. What is the first one you want to know?
Well, again, how do you find that gumph then as being an introvert to even get to that first step of starting blind, let alone everything else prior to that?
Okay, the one thing that I knew about myself was I knew how to design.
Yes,
I know how to manipulate type and shapes such that it creates interest. And I knew I was better than most of the students that went there. In fact, I hope this doesn't come across as braggadocious or too arrogant, but in some instances, by the time I was about halfway through school, I was better than a lot of my teachers.
Yes.
Wow.
Because I studied under some of the masters of design.
Wait,
one of my
prior to this?
professors.
Really?
No, in school.
In school.
Really?
Yeah.
Third semester,
Yeah.
I had a class with design typography professor Simon Johnson, who studied in Basel, was from the UK. He's this very proper British guy, and he was able to super identify and articulate what's working, what's not working. And he was the most professional, consummate teacher.
Yes.
And I just soaked all that stuff up.
Wow.
And I felt like, oh my gosh, now I found my jam.
Yeah.
And here's the weird thing. Even though we're all classmates going up together, my classmates would ask me to critique their work while I'm still in the same class as them.
Wow. Cool.
Right. So
Yep.
that's how quickly I was able to absorb this.
Yeah.
But what they didn't know, and this is consistent with my fishing and UFC story, was while they all went somewhere else, hung out, socialized, it's not a party school, but if they'd done something, I was literally in the library, going down the aisleway and pulling out every book, one book at a time. And so at a certain point, I knew where all the books were.
Yeah.
And I was just consuming these very expensive and rare, for the context, starving student. I'm like, these $80 magazines, this $200 book, I'm going to go through and I'm going to study. And I would literally lay tissue paper over each page that I thought was cool, and I would redraw them.
That's amazing.
And when you
dude.
redraw them, you start to see the structure.
Yeah.
Like even David Carson, I don't know if that's a reference you would know, who is famously like self-taught, which he's not. He went to Basel too, right? And you see the grid work and his understanding of space, form, and repetition, harmony and contrast, consonance and dissonance. And it made sense to me. So when I would go back to like fourth week of school, I'm like, oh, I know what's going on here. The professor hasn't gotten to this part, but I can see. And one of the things I did to myself as a matter of pride was he would say, you need to do 10 layouts. I would do 20 layouts. He would say, you need to do 5 revisions. I would do 10. I kept pushing and pushing. And what I saw was, if you're brave enough to go way to the left and way to the right, you can explore every way that doesn't work and find the one that does. The trap that most people get is they explore a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and they just inch outward versus going to the extremes and then working their way back in.
Yeah.
So where their growth was finite, my growth felt infinite. And I was also able to do something that most students don't do. I watch and listen to every critique for every student as if it were my work. So in a class of 20, it wasn't me learning one time, it was me learning 20 times.
That's pretty smart, dude.
So
Jeez.
this is how I'm leveling up really fast,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
when I get out of school, I know this about myself. So the problem I think a lot of creatives have in selling themselves is they don't have a strong belief that what they do is good, that what they do is valuable, and it's worthy of someone giving them as much money as they can afford.
Fair.
So when I talk to people, I'm not here to prove to you if I'm worthy of your money. I'm wondering if you're worthy of my time.
Right.
And I had this attitude like as soon as I graduated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid that though from coming across as like, okay, because you said from your time at an early age, that could have came across as arrogance. I get the whole arrogance, confidence, straddle thin line, but how do you avoid the one versus the other? Because somebody having a business hears this, they could kind of pull back on some of this.
They can.
Yeah.
And I think in reality, my philosophy on this, my take on this is the line between confidence and arrogance is very far apart. People think they're right next to each other. They are not.
Cool.
And oftentimes arrogance is not confidence. It's insecurity masked as confidence.
Agreed.
So when somebody walks in a room and is like, I'm the most important person here. You know what I've done? You know how much money I make? That is not confidence. That's arrogance.
Yeah.
Because it's masking insecurity. They announce these things almost to themselves more than to you. They remind themselves, I've done things, I'm important, I'm worthy, because inside of them is a child who has not received enough love, support. Somebody needed to say, I'm proud of you, you've done enough, and then they would chill out. Conversely, the most confident people to me are the people who are quietly in the room and you don't even know they're a rock star.
Yeah.
They give you space to do what you do. But they hold themselves not like they're insecure. They're just there and they create space for you. And then conversely, they become super magnetic. People are drawn to people who have an inner peace, who have an inner joy that doesn't mean that they have to subjugate you in order for themselves to feel better.
Yeah.
In high school and junior high, we call those people bullies. We don't call them confident.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah,
They're the
you're
same.
Right.
They just have more adult bodies now.
Yeah, fair enough. So do you think that this then has become a huge part of your success throughout, and I don't, again, not bragging or anything like that, but I mean, that you've been able to draw people in, not necessarily, push it out and be like, because a lot of social media out there right now is look at how great I am. Let me beat my chest. And you do seem to have, you're confident. Sometimes you're right. It may come across as a little bit of arrogance, but now with the way you just talked about it, it's actually completely different. So do you think that's been a big cause of your success?
I think so. I think a lot of people look at, cause and effect, input and output, action and reaction, right? So what people do who aren't sure about who they are, they look at the reaction or the effect that they want. Well, they want to be loved. They want their post to do well. And so what they say is, what do I need to do to get that result?
Yes.
And so they change themselves and they change what they post. They change how they show up because they think this is what people want. And when we see that, we actually don't want that at all.
Yeah.
And they wonder like, why aren't my posts getting any love? I must be shadow banned or something like that. I have a different approach to it. I said, your number one priority is to be the you can be. And when you fully embrace that wholeheartedly without trying to flex on anybody, this is my truth. I'm not saying it's your truth because we can have multiple truths in this because a lot of the world is not as objective as we think it is. It's mostly subjective, okay? Then I get to live my life the way I want. And if that's attractive to you, feel free to like, follow, or comment. And I'm not really here to make sure that your feelings and your opinions about me are satiated. I'm here to express myself to myself for myself.
Yes.
And if I can do that in a way that helps a lot of people, then there's a following, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people who are truly in a sync with themselves. Unfortunately for them, what they're in sync with doesn't help a lot of people.
Yes.
So there is this magical kind of middle ground, this overlapping Venn diagram where your truth and what is valuable to the world, if they overlap really well, you blow up. My example is Oprah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Oprah arguably doesn't have any singular talent that you can think of. She can't dance, she can't sing, she doesn't do impressions. But what she is really good at, she is in a way, right? Or she's a specialist in holding space for conversation, making people feel seen and heard, and being highly relatable to a lot of people.
Right.
She's trying to keep it as real can be.
Yeah.
And she's one of the most, if not the most successful woman in entertainment, period.
Fair.
Right?
Yeah.
So she found her lane.
Yeah.
And what she does in a different time and era would be worthless. But in the time in which she lives, with media and TV being where she was at the moment, becomes the biggest name in television.
Right.
So each one of us, I think, has this gift built in us. The problem is we keep ignoring this gift.
Right.
So what I try to do is help people find their gift and then to share it with the world.
So this whole idea that you're an introvert, does that help in this situation? Because you're more in touch, you're more thinking, you're more in your head?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm working on a new book idea, and I think it's something like the subtitle, not the title itself, is the secret power that introverts have that we all can learn from.
Yeah, I agree with
And
that.
let me explain, okay? Introverts don't want to take up room, so they've developed skills of listening.
Yep.
To almost like to an extreme where they never say anything, but we listen really well, and it's a powerful thing to have.
Yep.
We've always been told like the people with the answers are the ones who are valuable, the ones who are loud, commanding attention, drawing attention to themselves. And to the degree it works, but I think there's much greater power in your ability to listen, hold space, recognize, be empathetic to what's going on, and to relate to people. And so if I'm busy observing, watching, and listening, it makes me a better recorder and observer of the world. And this is really important. So I want to make this one point. I often ask my friends, what do you think about a movie? Or what was the best thing about this hotel or that experience you just had? They're like, I don't know. It was cool. It was interesting. I said, those are very generic words you just used. You literally could use that for any experience, and I could not tell the difference. And here's my thing is we are living recording machines, but the fidelity of the recording allows us to recall different things. And if the recording is low res, low fidelity, then our ability to play back and make connections is really low. Okay. So as an introvert, I believe one of my powers is I noticed the texture on the ceiling. I noticed how the wallpaper was peeling back, or how the joints, how two wall or two pieces of tile connect, what kind of glazing it had, the depth of the color. And I noticed all these things about everything, and especially about people.
Right.
Because my recording device has been trained since birth by accident or by design to record versus to speak.
Right.
Or to take up space.
Right.
Right. Because if you're talking, you're not learning. So introverts have this ability to learn 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much as the loud extrovert.
Yes.
And I think that's a power.
Wow.
Dude, I kind of like how you're reinventing what an introvert has seemingly, the brand of being an introvert. In all fairness, right? Because again, nobody would think this way. Introverts generally are almost succumbing to their insecurities of being an introvert.
Yeah.
But I do love, and I see the value in what you're saying. At what point because you can't say that you felt like this way since high school. Otherwise, you'd be like a Bill Gates at the age of 20 years old. Yeah. At what point did this start coming together for you?
I think the journey began when I was in college.
Okay.
When I was in a class, I'm like, oh, I could do this. I can outperform my classmates. And this is really interesting because prior to that, I'm a generic human who, if I died that day, no one would even notice or care. Except for my parents.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't done anything with my life. I haven't found my talent. Because I imagine, like, if you were in junior high or high school and you're really fast, you're on track, everybody's celebrating you. Like, you're the one winning the trophy and making our school and our city and then our state really proud. You won state. Then you go to nationals, and then there's maybe an amateur program and then an Olympics program.
Yep.
You're on the path. Maybe you're a chess champion and you're playing on the circuit, and it's like you have your talent. Most of us fall into this category of like, I'm a generic, carbon-based life form, and I don't know what else to provide to the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm sucking up oxygen, consuming her resources, and I haven't figured out my life.
Oh, man.
So,
why do you just make that so granular? I feel horrible for being a human right now.
Well, we have to think about it. You consume.
Yeah.
Your duty is to put things in order to leave the world better than you found it.
Right.
I agree.
That's key.
Yeah, I agree. Wow. Yeah, I teach that to my kids all the time.
Yeah.
So and again, this is happening fast. I don't want to spend all day with you, of course, but I can.
Yeah.
However, again, I remember early days of following you, black and white episodes of the school. Okay.
Yes.
I was on the treadmill at
OG.
the gym. It was just, I was there. I mean, I even reached out to you on YouTube, and you even were like, hey, if you're ever out in LA, you should come over and, come visit. I'm like, dude, I'm the other side of the world compared to where you were, right? It's not possible.
It's not so easy.
Yeah. But I mean, this whole, you were, when I first saw you, you were very held back. You were not the Chris that we all know and love. And even like 2018 Chris, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was that school? Like, what was that experience like? That must have been scary as hell. Because this was
scary.
early. This was really early
Oh.
stuff.
I know you're an OG fan because of your recall on this, and you've seen the evolution of the arc.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as scary in hell. It was like, I don't know what the extreme version of that is, but I felt all those things. And to put it in context for all the people who are maybe relatively new to our channel, those first few days, I could not introduce my name. I couldn't introduce my title. And I would try and I would fumble through it 3 times. I'm like, Jose, just open the show. And he would do it. And I walked around after each episode completely drained. Like there's nothing left inside of me.
Yeah.
And the next couple of days, my jaw would hurt. I couldn't figure out why. Because I was so tense and holding it here. And I was clenched and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about every word I was going to say or not say and thinking for the rest of eternity, somebody's going to hold me to these words. So I was the opposite of flow state. I was in stuck state. I was just moving through molasses. And eventually, I remember like 5 episodes in, I turned to Jose and I said, can I try the intro? He goes, really? Yes, of course. I've been waiting for you. This is awesome. And I would try it and I'd fumble. I'm like, okay, let me try it 3 more times. We'd have a laugh. You know, it took so many more episodes before I could actually hear my own voice because I would tell the teams, edit this, but I don't want to hear myself. I can't handle this. I'm sorry. I'm not strong enough. I'm so fragile, guys. Don't let me hear my own voice. So I could not watch our own episodes. They'd ask me to prove a cut. I'm like, if it looks good to you, it looks good to me. All I would do is read the comments.
Yeah.
And I would respond to them. So I would know that this episode is doing well or resonates with people or not purely based on the comments.
Wow.
Jeez, that's like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Oh, and then the big step was...
Hold
on, let me rephrase this.
Yes.
Was the big step a result of the environment or was it a personal reflection?
It was mostly a personal reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so personal that my wife is the one who helps me to get through this part.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And my children, right? So there's 2 components to it. Like my wife was excited for me. She's like, oh, you're doing YouTube. What's this all about? You know? I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying stuff. And she'd watch a couple episodes. And then one day I'd come home because I love her feedback. She's super critical. Yeah. She's Taiwanese, so that's how they're born. It's just like they're going to give it to you. You know the critique sandwich?
Yeah.
There's like bread, tomato.
They invented
no,
it.
It's just no, it's meat. It's all meat. Yeah.
It's all the meat.
Canadians invented the sandwich, right? It's like lots of bread, toppings. Just one paper thin slice of meat. But if you're from Taiwan or Asian culture, it's like 1 inch cut thick meat. And that's all you get. So she says to me, in her own strange, loving way, your episodes are unwatchable. I'm like, babe. She said that. It was unwatchable. You're disorganized. You're all over the place. I can't follow you. Do you guys even prepare? And it's like, cut me. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
And then she walks away. I'm like on the floor in a pool of blood. I'm like, okay. So once you get over the hurt, the anger, the denial, you come to the acceptance. And I'm like, she's right. And so I say to everybody, you need at least one truth sayer in your life. Someone that deep down cares about you more than anything and would never do anything to hurt you, but love you enough to tell you the truth, even if it hurts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I don't think she even knew. She was like, cutting me left and right, but she just said what she had to say. And so I started thinking, she's right. We kind of brainstorm in the morning. We just kind of ramble on, and these episodes aren't very good.
Yeah.
So then I told Jose, I said, Jose, let's do something different. I'm trying to get my wife to watch the show, and so we need to prepare. So here's a topic we'll talk about next time. I'm going to go home tonight and prepare. Now, here's the thing. As you already know about me, I know how to prepare. I know how to do work. I just didn't make the commitment to it because I think in a weird way, I do what most people do. When you don't want to do something, you self-sabotage. So when it doesn't work out, it confirms, YouTube is not for me. This is for kids. This is stupid.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, I think I was half-assing it to prove to myself it wasn't going to work.
Brilliant.
So I decided, based on my wife's feedback, I'm going to work on the deck. So middle of the night, I sent it to Jose, and about 3 a.m, I finished the deck. We show up the next day, we go into record, and that is the first episode that takes off. Yes. And it's called something like brand identity, logo design.
Yes.
And that's really, it started to take off. And I'm like, oh, what else can I do? So if we show up for our audience and give value and prepare and are in love with the content, it might actually impact our attitude and our delivery.
Right.
Because prior to that, we were making videos to sell products.
Mm.
And I felt weird about that too. So I told Jose, new rule, we make content for content's sake. When we want to sell, we sell, but we don't try to mix these two things together.
Mm.
He goes, okay. And so we started doing that. And every time I would sit down and prepare a deck, those episodes were work.
Yeah.
And they would start to get tens of thousands of views, not hundreds of thousands, but it was better than the 400 views we used to get.
Right.
So I knew, and the internet knows, and the algorithm knows. And I say this to people, money is a measurement of impact created. So you can say views or followers is a measure of impact created. Like, do you create impact for people? If not, if it's self-serving, then it's okay. But just realize you're not going to get much following and you're not going to get a lot of opportunities. And so I look at today, we zoom out 10 years later, and we have a pretty good fan base from all over the world. I like to tell myself it's because we've created a lot of impact in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
You speak quite publicly about your wife helping you through these moments. I love your humility, because a lot of dudes just that they couldn't do this, or maybe potentially wife to their husbands. She's made a huge impact in a lot of your decisions, your future, and everything else. How important is it? Well, this is a silly question, but like the influence, the external influence, like being humble enough to take the external influence or opinions, but know where that line is. Like, how do you know where that line is? Maybe because it's your wife, she has a buy, or a free pass to say what she wants. But I'm sure her opinion is similar if you would have asked your best friend at the time or a teacher or something like that. Where do you know where that line is?
Okay. Most people,
Yeah.
especially Canadians, they're going to hold back the true, and they're going to give you the nice true.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. So
100%.
there's a difference between being nice and being kind. And a lot of times when people are like, hey, is my outfit okay? They're being nice.
Yes.
But kindness is truth.
Yes.
And you have to have a really good relationship with someone to risk them getting upset at you because it's for their own good. Right. So if my friend has a giant booger hanging on their nose, I'm gonna, you got something right here. You might want to get that off. But you notice they could walk around for 20 minutes in front of 100 people and no one will say anything.
Right.
Because like, this is weird, but I'm not going to be that person.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yo, you want me to get that off for you, bro? Let me just, hold on. You got something. Right, exactly. And that's the kind of person I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one thing I would say to people, because I have the opportunity to coach and individuals, organizations, and former students, that what you want to do is you want to let go of your attachment to your identity, to the way things are, so that you create room for what might be new and better. So we have to practice some kind of form of detachment,
Interesting.
right? So when somebody gives me a piece of information, the first rule I try to tell myself is rein in your emotions,
Yeah.
listen to this information objectively so you can have a high fidelity recording of what they say, versus filter through all your hurt, emotions, feelings of anger, shame, and guilt so that you can hear it. You don't have to do anything with it. You just need to hear it. Okay?
Yes.
And if it makes you upset, take in as much as you can and say thank you for your feedback and just walk away.
Right.
That's enough.
Right.
And then let it gestate in your mind and your body. And like, oftentimes the things that hurt us the most, they only hurt us because we know they're true.
Yeah. Fair.
So usually when you're angry about something, it's like, I wish they hadn't said that. Because somewhere deep inside the cavern of your mind, you've thought this too.
Right.
Maybe not on a conscious level. And I'll give you the example. If I went over and tried to insult both of you and said, you're a purple alien, that would not even impact you at all.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, I'm not a purple alien. I hold no truth there. It doesn't connect with any I've ever thought.
Yes.
For most people. But if I said, you're not working as hard as you should be, or you're unfocused, or you need to make 10 new client calls a day if this is what it's going to be to get you work. You're like, F you, Chris. I don't want to hear none of that. It's because somewhere in there, you're like, I should do 10 calls and not 0 calls. I should be a little bit more focused on what it is I want. And you know what? I need to give up a couple of things that I like to get the things that I really love.
Yeah.
And that's why those things are hard for us to hear, because we're so attached to things that don't even serve us, but they're familiar to us. And it's one of these things, when you hold so many things, you cannot hold new ideas. So what I try to do is practice some form of objective listening. And it can come from a hater. It can come from my wife. It can come from my children. It can come from some random person on the street, or the foremost expert in any category. I try to treat them all the same.
So
if it's good information, I need to learn from it.
Right. Yeah.
So would objective listening be kind of like the segue into critical thinking, in your opinion?
Absolutely.
It is, eh?
Yes. Yes. And critical thinking, and people are a little funny about this. They think critical thinking is to critique other people's thoughts.
Yes. Yes.
That's what they think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like this and you should change that. I'm a critical thinker. Actually, it's not. Critical thinking is every idea you have, you attack yourself. So you try to find truth.
Yeah.
The pursuit or the outcome of critical thinking is truth.
Yes.
And you have to let go of non-truths. And believe it or not, we hold on to so many beliefs that we have zero evidence for because somebody said it to us one time.
That's brilliant. Dude.
Holy smokes.
Dude, honestly, it's like you are like Confucius with this stuff, honestly, because you absorb so much. You're always so well-spoken. You keep your composure. Your interviews are fantastic. How do you do this, dude?
I'm going to take you back to the beginning of our conversation.
Okay.
I'm a notorious single tasker. I'm an
There it
introvert.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm listening, I'm responding, and I'm a good student, right? So I'm the deep diver. I'm not the person who goes a mile wide and an inch deep. I want to go an inch wide and a mile deep on as many things as I find to interest me.
Yes. Interesting. And then how are you retaining that information?
Here's the funny thing. I never thought myself capable of retaining this kind of information.
Yeah.
I want to take you back to I think 2015. There's this young guy, he's coming up in the world, and it's a young Gary Vaynerchuk. He's speaking at USC, and he's dropping his F-bombs, and his ability to kind of rattle off stats and data. It was so weird, right? I'm like, who is this guy? This is crazy. I'm watching this. I'm like, oh my God, I could never, ever do that. Right? He would pull out 37.3% of Facebook users never do this. I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you even know this? Or he would quote people, and I'm like, shoot. But here's the thing. While pursuing this teaching online thing, I get questions I don't have answers to. So I want to go and read. The books behind me are not an indication of all the things I know. It's the potential of what I want to know. So when I have to speak on something, it's like my own library. I'm kind of rebuilding my days at Art Center. I'd walk down, I'd find the book of marketing, which is right over there. I'd pull it out. I'm like, well, this is kind of interesting. People are asking about this. Let me read what I need to read to learn about this, and let me think about it.
Yeah.
So I used to criticize myself as being a slow reader. I always felt like I'm not smart. I don't know how people read so fast, but I've reframed this because I've done some inner work here as I'm not a slow reader. I'm a deep reader, and I retain more.
That's actually
So the
really
negative
smart.
critical voice gets replaced by the true voice.
Yeah, fair.
And so I read, I highlight, I reread, I underline, I take notes. And if you ever see me preparing for a talk, I basically rewrite everything I know all over again, all the time. And so I think to myself, if I were a little bit more optimized and efficient, I would just have a searchable database of things that I've recorded, but instead I just rewrite them again and again and again. So they exist in a notebook, they'll exist in a 3x5 index card, they'll live in a keynote. But I think that process, although not efficient, is really effective at retaining information.
Yeah.
That's how I do it.
So with you constantly absorbing information, like with the books, I love that idea. Have you ever said anything that later on you regretted saying, or you were like, ooh, I've changed my opinion, and you've gone publicly with it because you are all over the web?
I don't know if I've regretted anything I say, because what I say represents what I know and feel and think in the moment.
Yeah.
If I act out of an emotional place that's coming from negative energy, those are more likely the things I'm going to regret.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But I also don't want to deny myself of feeling things. And we all do things and say things, both good and bad, that if we weren't living in an emotional state, we wouldn't have done.
Yes.
So for example, if you're feeling full of joy and love and you're just like walking on clouds, somebody might come up to you and ask you to help them with something. Normally you might not say yes, and then you do it and you realize they're not good people and you're like, oh, I regret doing that. I was in a positive emotional state. They capitalized just on the right time of asking me when I was vulnerable to giving.
Yes.
And it happens both ways. So I'm like, now I'm in a negative state where I'm like, shoot, things aren't working out. Maybe my wife and I got into a fight, or my kids are like arguing with me about something. And then you ask me for something and I snap at you. I'm like, yo, I don't got time for you right now. I might regret that. But it's like we only understand that after the fact. we try to regulate our emotions a little bit better in the moment, but it would make us not human if we didn't actually experience that from time to time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I try to not regret anything. I try to learn from things and say, how would I do this differently and better next time? But I'm not going to beat myself up over it because I messed up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you're really good at controlling your emotions or your thoughts, your opinions off the camera? Like with your wife,
Yeah.
kids, family,
Yes.
everything? Really?
Yes,
Good
I
for
didn't know
you.
this, but somebody would say to me, "You're very even keeled," or and then somebody said, "You're stoic." I'm letting you know what stoic means. I had to go look it up. I'm like, "Oh, I see." And people often ask me, "Do you meditate?" I'm like, "No." And then my wife says, "Don't say that. Say that you don't do meditation in a traditional way." Because as far as I understand, what meditation really means is not to suppress your emotion, not to react, but to observe your emotions while you're having them and decide and regulate what works for you. So to me, meditation is like a witness to what you're feeling, and the levels in which you're able to attain is how many levels out you can go.
Yeah, fair.
So gurus and yogis like that might be able to go out 2 levels. So it's the observer observing the observer observing themselves. And that level of awareness is really powerful.
Yeah.
So I think I'm only one rung out where I can see myself sometimes as an outer body experience, seeing myself talking to someone while I'm talking to them at the same time.
Right.
So in that way, you kind of can regulate what's going on. So
Jeez.
yeah, I will lose my cool. And usually I lose my cool when I feel disrespected.
Ah, that's a whole.
And there's a reason why I'm not proud of this. But ever since I was a child, if someone disrespects me, my brother, who I even argue with all the time, or my family, it's like there's the Hulk red button. Like I'm gonna go Hulk.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
even though you're bigger, stronger, better trained, physically fit, I will still fight you.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be better about this kind of thing. So my hot button, and I'm just gonna put it out there, if you disrespect me, I'm gonna go at you.
Wow.
Cool.
I try my best not to go there, but it's one of those triggers where the fuse lights from like when I was 4 or something.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Well, then this is the perfect opportunity to ask you what's
Yes.
frustrating you about the design industry as of lately.
I don't know if I have enough time to think about what frustrates me.
Fair.
Gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, I think where maybe this is what frustrates me, that people over index or focus too much on the things that they can't control
Yeah.
as an avoidance strategy on the things that they can control.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Okay, you can control when you get up, you can control what you eat, you can control how you use your energy, you can control the strength of your personal relationships to a degree, at least how you show up. You can't control other people's reaction. And you know that if your business is not doing well, that's what you need to work on. But what they do instead is they go and complain about what Studio A is doing, or maybe the city is against them, or the government is against them, or things they cannot control.
Yep.
And that's a problem, because if you can't actively change it, you're using your energy in ways that don't really move you forward.
That's smart. That's also a very stoic way of thinking. So good on you with that. Okay, last question before we go
Yes.
into fun round.
Okay.
What advice would you give your younger self if you could for 20-year-old Christo?
Okay. I'll tell you a story and then I'll tell you what advice I would give.
Cool.
Okay. There's a gentleman I got to meet about 2 years ago in San Diego, Pastor Erwin McManus. He runs a mega church here called Mosaic, and he doesn't fit into any kind of neat little box. He's not overly trying to push Christianity or anything, and he's really into quantum entanglement and other esoteric topics.
Wow.
I meet him, and he gives a presentation after I speak, and people are literally standing up, voluntarily standing up and applauding, and the room is electric. He's a powerful storyteller. Subsequently, I've been able to meet Erwin on several occasions, have lunch and dinner with him, and get inside of his mind a little bit. Well, Erwin, at a very young age, started to practice rhetoric, public speaking on the street corner, trying to save souls, until he eventually made his way into church.
Yes.
So I asked him, how long have you been doing this? It's roughly about 40 years. And no wonder he's so powerful. He has command over his voice, stories, and data, and he has so many like life experience that seems so amazing. He's lived a rich life. So I say to myself, shoot, I've been doing this for 10 years. What would I be like in 40 years? I'm only 10 years into my public journey, my journey to public speaking. So I would tell my 20-year-old self, boy, if you started now, you would be 32 years better at public speaking. Right?
Wow.
So I don't know what that looks like because in 30 years, I'm going to be 82. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything at 82. So I have to be 82 to catch up to where Erwin is with the reps. And to just remember, I don't know when he started to run his church, but he gives, I think, a sermon twice a week, 52 times a year. That's 104 at-bats a year for 40 years.
Yeah.
We're all not writing new material on a weekly basis to that level. So skill or confidence comes from skill, and skill comes from repetition.
Yes.
So whatever it is that you want to do and be better at, just put more reps in for now.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's brilliant, dude. That's good. That is such a great story.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to remember that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool, right? Dude, I could talk to you for all
Yes.
afternoon. I warned you I would. But listen, I'm going to be
Yes.
respectful to your time. However, we finish every episode with a quick, rapid round questions to kind of get the full picture of the story, okay? You've got 2 minutes to finish these questions, okay? They're not design related, maybe a little bit more personality related, but it kind of allows us to kind of get an idea of who the real Christo is. Is that cool?
Okay, let me ask you the question.
Yeah.
Does the time start when I answer, or the time starts when you finish the question?
I'll let it start when you answer the first question. How's that? Cool.
Good. Yes.
Okay.
Sean, are you going to ask them? What's going on here?
No, I'm gonna time it.
Oh, you're going to time it.
Yeah.
I see. You're the timekeeper.
I'm
I
the
got you.
timekeeper. Yes.
All right, cool.
Sorry, dude. I tend to talk a lot. But I think everybody's used to
I'm
that.
one of those introverts, I think, that you were speaking of, that I like to listen and kind of absorb what's going on. And this was
I love it.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. But this is a fun part.
We're old enough, right? Because he's like the Johnny Carson, you're the Ed McMahon. You're the hearty laugh. Like you bring the energy.
That's right.
Couldn't do it
Right?
without him.
Ed never said much, but he'd be like,
Yeah, just to do the laugh.
And
That's
Sean
Yes.
has the $1 million laugh. Let me tell you.
yes, he does. I believe it.
Amazing.
Big body, big laugh.
big laugh. Exactly.
Yes.
All right. Ready?
Okay.
Actually, we go with this one.
Yeah,
Ready?
we'll go with this one.
Set.
You're going to ask the question, and the timer starts when I answer, right?
You answer the first one.
Right
It's pretty
when you
easy.
answer.
Some of them are easy, some of
Right,
them are harder.
start.
Ready?
Okay, go ahead.
2, 1. Mac or PC?
Macintosh, 1000%. Don't ever ask me that question again.
Paper or tablet?
Paper.
Favorite type of music?
Oh my God.
Wow. Even I'm shocked about this one.
I like all kinds of music. The two kinds that I don't really get into is probably country and metal.
Yeah.
Everything else I love.
Okay.
Opposite
Yeah.
ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Favorite color?
Probably, I know it's not a color, but I'm going to say black.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Morning person.
Look at the three of us here. Like, what's the mystery? What could it be? Blue, orange, purple? Has to be black.
Unique, aren't we?
Yes. Designers. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Morning person or night owl?
I work all the time, morning, night, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. If your spirit so desires, listen to it. Rest when you're tired. Wake when you have energy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Favorite anime?
Ninja Scroll.
Ooh, interesting. Favorite anime character?
Probably Akira.
Whoa.
Nice.
Going old school. Favorite collectible?
Collectible. Well, there's these characters that are from Underverse, designed by Ashley Wood. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it.
Very cool. Okay, that's good. Favorite superhero?
The Hulk.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Mouse or stylus?
Wait, say it one more time.
Mouse or stylus?
If I'm painting, stylus. If it's precise, like drawing an illustrator, it's a mouse.
Fair enough. Favorite design trend right now? And I did say trend.
I'm not good with trends. I would say my favorite design trend is designers who can think and articulate their ideas.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay. Do you have
Yeah.
a worst design trend right now?
No, I don't. I don't really pay attention to trends.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Yeah. Only tea.
Only
Okay.
tea.
Ooh. Comic-Con
don't
or
drink
Anime
coffee.
Expo?
Oh my God, you're killing me on that.
Yep.
Comic-Con. Even though I was on the board of Anime Expo, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, friends. I'm so sorry.
Not anymore. Puppies or kittens?
Oh, shoot, you're killing me on that one. Yeah, I'm out of a job after this.
Puppies or kittens?
Kittens.
Pirates or ninjas?
Ninjas.
Who'd win in a fight? Deadpool or Wolverine?
Wolverine.
Oh, cool. Favorite graphic designer, past or present?
Joseph Mueller Brockman.
Oh, interesting. Rare.
Yeah.
What's closer to your heart, RGB or CMYK?
RGB.
Serif or non-serif?
Sans serif.
Favorite font right now?
Helvetica Now Pro.
Rotring mechanical pencil or a Micron pen?
Fudge. Micron.
Oh,
yeah.
Smart. All right. Illustrator, Photoshop.
Oh my God, it depends, but I'm using a lot of Photoshop right now.
Okay. Quick question. True or false? AI is going to replace illustrators.
False.
Oh, good man.
They're going to enhance them.
Yes.
Dogtown Z-Boys or Bones Brigade?
Bones Brigade is my era.
What's your
Yes.
guilty pleasure?
Shopping. Can I tell you a funny story? Okay. I'll tell you a funny story. I just finished speaking at a conference, and this lady walked over. She goes, Chris, I belong to this organization. I'd love to invite you to speak. I'm like, sure. She turns to all her friends. He's going to speak. I'm like, well, we got to do business. These Louis bags don't pay for themselves. Let me just tell you. So I'm going to make a post. My post is, you know how they hold signs, we'll work for. I'm like, we'll work for designer bags. That's it. We'll speak for designer bags. I love it. I think that's going to be a good one. Right. Sorry, guys. I'm a snob like that. Hate me now.
No shame.
Yeah.
Best video game console ever?
PlayStation 3.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
All right. And one thing that always makes you angry despite what you say?
One thing that makes me angry? Wait, give me an example. I don't understand the question.
Bad drivers. Long lines. Indecisive customers.
Not being able to shop.
Not being able to
Perfect.
shop. When your card doesn't work when you want to buy that bag.
Okay. Thank you for helping me with that. The answer is super simple. Indecision.
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 Yeah.
People get stuck like, oh, what am I going to eat? I don't know. Should I buy this? Shouldn't I buy this? Should I enroll in this course? Shouldn't I? Should I go on that trip or not? I'm like, you guys are killing me. Make a decision. Get off. As they say, take a poo or get off the pot.
Right.
One or the other.
Well, we are almost at a record here, Chris. So our 2-minute fire round questions. 5 minutes and 14 seconds. So good on you for that.
Keep in mind, you told a shopping story in the middle of that.
We'll give you a little bit of grace with that.
Yes.
So listen, again, like I said, I keep talking your head off, but honestly, I thank you for your time because I know you're a busy guy, and I know all of our listeners. We didn't even talk about there's so much we didn't talk about. So please plug the future, plug education, plug what your cause is.
Yeah.
Okay. I usually do this at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to introduce myself and unplug something, okay?
Cool.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for listening or watching to this episode. My name is Chris Stowe. I'm a loud introvert, a middle child, a recovering graphic designer, and a serial entrepreneur. I have this really big mission, which is to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love without losing their soul. And if you watch any of our videos, consumed any of our content on Instagram, LinkedIn, or YouTube, I'm going to ask you for this one little thing, only if it gives you joy. I'm not going to try to guilt you into this. We recently started memberships on YouTube as a different way of raising revenue and creating a sustainable, equitable business model. If you so endeavor to, and if it gives you joy, I would love for you to become a member. Just go to youtube.com/thefutureishere. Future spelled without an E. It's FUTUR. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Cool. And you know what? You got to plug the Angry Designer part at the end of that. That would have been better if you would have been like, and you gotten this information live from the Angry Designer podcast. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, dude. You missed out a huge opportunity. That would have just blown it up all over the internet.
Okay, and I'll do it. Okay, here we go. Okay. And through the magic of editing, we're going to do this. Yeah. And you've been listening to the Angry Designers podcast.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
That's
buddy,
awesome.
You're fantastic.
All right.
Man. Thank you so much. Thank you for being so damn human on this episode, because you know what? I needed it, and I'm sure everybody who listens to you on a regular basis needs that.
Yeah.
Cool?
Well, thank you.
Cool.
That was a fun conversation. The time flew by.
Man. I'm
and
glad.
maybe for 400 or 400th episode,
Yeah, we'll
come
hit
back.
you up again, okay?
Let's do it. On the 400th episode, we'll do 2 hours.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
love it.
Yes. Yes.
All right, everybody. I hope you got so much out of this episode, because this was so fulfilling for me. You know, I feel like a long life person I've been following, and has now just become that much more human, and his goals and everything he teaches has become so much more attainable. So, with that being said, you know where to hit us up, you know where to follow us, and reach out if you have any questions, and hit us up on our communities, because on Instagram is where we're having all the conversations, and you know where to find Chris. With that being said,
Yes.
my name's Massimo.
And my name is Sean.
And you are.
Oh, I'm Chris Dell.
Yes.
Stay creative.
And stay angry.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, no, this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.